right, thank you for staying with Daybreak. Let's get into that conversation on the Jubilee scorecard and find out what are your thoughts on this. We'll talk about devolution, education, healthcare, and the economy really quick. At Trevor Mbiji at Citizen TV Kenya, use the hashtag Daybreak. And I'll start with Omari on this. Devolution. What do you think is the Jubilee scorecard? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would you give them and why?
Yeah, I thought, Trevor. I thought
you were supposed to reply.
That you want
to give a chance to respond.
That's what you said.
The thing about politicians is we will talk about that the whole time. We won't talk about our main topic. Okay, let's start with that. Yes, I did promise you a chance to respond.
Yes, and I think it's only fair because you see, one, you had all the accusations that were.
Now this is your chance to respond.
And it is important for me to set the record straight.
Yes.
That as far as I'm concerned, heading to January, as we open after the holidays, I'll be launching and launching big time. So please wait for the launch.
Yeah.
And then all those that aspire to have good leadership, come join us. Once you join us, and I'll be giving my AG an opportunity to speak on this when we are opening. You'll see that we've got good stuff for this country. We've got a great plan for this country. And so don't be surprised that people like Azimio la Umoja, UDA may want to join us, not us joining them, and move ahead with us. So
I see the smile on boss's face.
And you know, Trevor, I told you when we started this show that some of us have mastered the art of saving the best for last. And this is going to work well. So I want the AG to hold your horses. Stop declaring things that you don't know. Otherwise, your job could be on the line.
You know, Kiprono Abraham Kogo here is saying Mutua and Wamatangi ticket was just but a threat to vie for presidency. To sustain a threat has proved to be untenable for the duo. They might part ways. Senator will jump ship to UDA and governor to the movement. They already decided.
I can even tell you, Trevor, I think that's why I asked this during the break, because I was here when Senator Wamatangi said that he's the running mate as deputy president with Alfred Mutua. And I believed him. So I was surprised when he himself on this show now says it's a two-horse race. That's why I asked him, I thought you were running, so how come there are two horses? And you're part of the third horse. But in any case, I think I'm really happy that he was threatening to run for president, but he's now my homework. I will be making sure that he moves to UDA because I know he'll move to UDA.
Trevor.
And my second point, let me finish.
Let her finish.
And then just in response to what was said, I think the senior counsel here is saying that the ideology is just something to get votes. No. First, you have an ideology. You have a dream for this country, and you want to implement it. The only way to implement it is to be in charge of government. And the only way to be in charge of government is to win an election. So yes, we have an agenda, but we know we've got to work the ground, get the votes, then be able to do what we are dreaming about, or else it will be just a dream. Because we don't want to be a situation where Raila is known for slogan after slogan after slogan. One time he told us he was taking us to Canaan. Then later he didn't take us to Canaan. We ended up, then he told us, no, there were crocodiles in the Red Sea. That's why we didn't reach Canaan. And now he's taking us back to Egypt. You know, so that is now slogans. But for us, it's a well-thought-out ideology. You know that we have some of the best economists who are working on this. And we have even explained to Kenyans how we intend to implement it. When it comes to healthcare, we have explained to Kenyans how we intend to implement it. And we are telling them, hold us to account. And in fact, on the issue of healthcare, UDA has already begun the process. We had an amendment to the National Hospital Insurance Fund recently in Parliament. The biggest numbers that were in Parliament to push for that amendment was actually UDA members. Reason being, it is going to be one of the, we needed that amendment so that when William Ruto takes over the presidency, he can hit the road running on that agenda. So we mean business. It's not a joke. And lastly, please, I'm telling you, there is nobody who can pay those number of crowds. Nobody can afford it. Believe me. Not even Uhuru Kenyatta, who's the richest man in Kenya. He can't buy the crowds. People come out, why you see the same number of people? People are curious, and that's what they should be doing. Whenever a politician is somewhere, we also urge people, listen to them, then make up your mind. Let them tell you what they have for you. That is why when Raila Odinga came to Uasin Gishu, we told our people, go and listen to him. so that you can be able to make an informed decision. So the fact that you see crowds going to each team, that's what Kenyans do. Okay. Similarly, when I want to make a decision on something, I will sound it out with several people before I make a decision. So they are not paid crowds. I think that is taking it too simple.
Okay.
Trevor,
yes, I'll come to you for a response.
On a very serious note, I want you to look at me and boss and tell me who can be whose homework. You know, she said that right.
I have a reputation. There is no way I can be your homework. You can be my homework.
Even the name boss tells it all.
Oh, no.
And the question of who can be whose homework, that is answered emphatically.
Does he know what I'm called in my home village? Chebamuren Iron Lady. There is no way I can crack.
So, okay, we'll see how this plays out.
But on a more serious note, I wanted to settle this with some of the remarks that were made by my AG there. You know, I said this many times over, Trevor. I'm one of those political leaders in this country who believe in walking and going the entire course. And I want this to be clear because each person must have a reputation and they must be known by something. I believe that once you make a promise, you must keep that promise. And if it takes a year or two, you go the whole hog, the whole mile, and touch the tape and tell the people this is what I said and this is what I did because I committed to do it. The reason why you find that I have firmly stood where I was elected in the party of Jubilee is because we made promises to the people of this republic that we are going to implement this, that this is what we are going to do as a government. And I've been given a responsibility right now, just as I was given in 2013 and 2017 by the people, to stand firm and ensure that those promises come true. And to the last minute and with the last breath, ensure that I have put everything that I've got to it. Until such a time when it is officially now the time to say it is time to return your results and get judged for what you did, and now plan and move on to the next formation. That is what I'm going to do. That I'll be true to that word and that oath that I took. And then upon finalization of that and being judged, I'll be subjecting myself to the will of my people, the one who gave me the job. And I'll tell them, this is my scorecard, rate me, and I want to move to the next level. Allow me and back me. And that way, come the next 10 years, I can count on what I did and the reputation I built and how the people can now identify with me to say that we can even now journey to the top of the leadership of this country because we have a firm reputation. That is the kind of reputation that I am firm and keen and determined to build in this country. A politics with a difference.
Rather late, though.
Yes, the crowds, the huge crowds that we are seeing across the country is a positive development in our politics. Because one, how do you expect citizens to vote without listening to leaders? So I don't think it's right to demonize, and even if it is the same crowd turning up for the different people, it is good because they're listening to different packages of information so that they can make informed decisions. And this is a good development for the country. That is one. Two, the manifestos and the models that the presidential candidates are presenting are not mere wishes and are not mere documents to take anybody to the presidency. During elections, we shall not only be electing a president, we are electing a president together with the package of the manifesto. The manifesto and whatever models that anybody is presenting will drive government policy. And that is a practice all over the world. And that's what Kenyans should know. You are not only electing an individual, but you are also approving the manifesto. That will be part of government, that will drive all government policies, that will determine the legislation. Some of the legislations are already in place. And therefore, a presidential candidate will customize his own agenda and make it very clear to Kenyans so that we don't create confusion. And that is a positive development for our country. Just like in 2002, when we engaged Kibaki as teachers in Nyeri, when we were annoyed with Kanu government, he said, yes, I'll make you teachers comfortable. I'll collect taxes and I will pay for education from primary 1 to 8. That was a commitment. And when he was elected the president, the state resources were directed toward that model because he made a promise. So these are not mere wishes to Kenyans. They're not mere statements. They're serious statements. And Kenyans are invited to address themselves to those various manifestos and models because it will determine their lives.
Omari, you're the one who opened this Pandora's box. I'll give you a chance to close it so that we talk about the scorecard.
Definitely, the Pandora box I opened has been answered by the politicians in a political manner. That very professional political manner. We respect their decision. Kenyans have heard, and they'll decide on it. But my only response is that, can they be held accountable? Talking is one. Kenyans, under Article 2, you know very well of the Constitution that you have a duty to protect the Constitution and hold any public officer to account. For now, let us give the benefit of doubt because they are still mutating for the next 6 months. Then we will know their true colors by June where they are, because the two of them are saying one has a task to import the other one or export the other one to UDA or to Azimio. Really, we don't know. Let us, Trevor, go to the question, the basis you asked about the scorecard. It has a bearing on what we are talking about. When you look at the scorecard, for me, for Jubilee's scorecard is tremendously fantastic. Tremendously fantastic. In terms of delivery, you walk in this country, those ones who was alive by the time Jubilee had not come to power, the old regime, and you look at the country now, you drive everywhere in this country, you fly everywhere in this country, you take a boat everywhere in this country, you feel there is some dramatic change. The question of devolution, and that's why I want Kenyans to be a bit sympathetic to Jubilee, is that by 2013, there was zero devolution. There was nothing. At 2013, it was the formative stages of a system of government that nobody had an experience. The bureaucracy didn't know what was supposed to be done. The politicians landed as governors. They didn't know their powers. The senators didn't know what they were supposed to do. There were two legislatures, one in the National Assembly, the other one in the Senate. So really from 2013 to around 2015, I'll say it was formative stages, and any new company has those challenges, because remember you were launching Ramogi the other day. There are a few challenges that Ramogi will face before it gets to. But when you look at Jubilee, their biggest failure is that they never managed to remove the perception that they are fighting. It is purely a perception. I tend to think that the differences, the perceived differences between President Uhuru Kenyatta and his counterpart William Ruto and Baba coming in gave a good impetus, because there were checks and balances. Jubilee came with the tyranny of power. Complete tyranny of power in Parliament and in all over. Slowly, anybody who comes with such a momentous monster cannot sustain that momentum. They collapsed for the good of this country. So that today, you see they are checking each other. This one says this, the other one is saying this one. This one is saying this, the other one is saying this one. In my own view, if this momentum of laying the foundation for a holistic development of the nation is continued by whichever regime that comes to power, and we strengthen institutions, slowly we are seeing the strengthening of serious institutions of governance in this country, which is slowly going to transform into a mature democracy. I agree with Mheshimiwa that when you see those crowds, the same people dancing, boss tells you, you see Baba in Sugoi, and is being followed by millions of people in William Ruto's place. That is the maturity of this country that we are now seeing. Sell your idea as The government, the bureaucracy, continue implementing the policies passed by Parliament. The executive, do your stuff. The judiciary, stop them when they are in excess of the Constitution. So in my own view, I think this country is now stable, and we are not likely to see any political war of like the 2007, when there was a lot of intolerance, massive intolerance that led to the post-election violence. So in my view, every sector, the education sector is taking a proper technical direction that is growing. Devolution is doing fantastic. So in my own view, I think that we are in a proper trajectory. Let this noise of politics end on 9th. As Kenyans, let's work together to develop this nation.
Okay. So, Sion, what do you think? What is the Jubilee scorecard in your perspective? He's giving a very tremendous score.
I think sometimes we over-defend and we act like insurance broking, and you paint something to look so good when it's not. The Constitution of Kenya 2010 was implemented from 2010. The legislations were put in place. It's very ambitious, and the Constitution was meant to transform this country very, very, very greatly. And it happens that the offices, that is of governors and the rest, were instituted after the elections of 2013. And the implementation of devolution is all about resources, nothing much, nothing else. It's about funding. So when you talk of success of devolution, the key indicator is how much resources we are devoting in our budgetary allocation. Not how well it has been done, but how much resources. Let's track our budgets from 2013. It has been rising in leaps of trillions and trillions. But how much has gone to the grassroots? Because according to me, by now with a budget of 3.5 trillion shillings, and you're talking about devolution taking only 370 billion, and the governors have to struggle, many things are not working. Now with the experience of how to run county government, the demand for resources, for finances is far much higher to make it work. Look at the functions of devolution. Core function is about roads, certain class of roads. It is not properly funded. Number two, water supply is the core mandate of county. How is it working? Our women are still collecting water from valleys, and they've not accessed clean water. And so this is an area that has not been funded, that has not been structured, that is not working across the 47 counties. Number three, agriculture. Agriculture is a core mandate of the county government. How has it been promoted? It's collapsing. In fact, right now, if you go to the feed suppliers for livestock, we no longer have even livestock feeds. The industry is collapsing, and the food reserve in this country is collapsing. Have we really funded and protected agriculture the way it should have been? And then lastly, number four, healthcare system. Have we put up the desired health facilities? Because we don't talk about healthcare, universal health coverage without building healthcare facilities. It's all about resources. I would say empirically, looking at the data, so that when you talk about the scorecard, let us identify the key functions and how it has been funded by the state. So to me, the 370 billion compared to a budget of 3.5 trillion is actually sabotaging the devolution. There has been, we've witnessed competing interests of the national government and county government. That's a fundamental truth. We've seen it. Who has taken over Nairobi County? It is National Metropolitan Service under the military. Did we not trust a county government that can function and deliver within the framework of the Constitution, that the executive has to turn around and use other means to take over a city. I think, to me, the county governments have been under attack. If it were for Jubilee, in terms of funding, I would see county government deserving an appropriation of, say, 1 trillion shillings to the counties, so that then we fix the roads properly at the rural, we fix the water, we fix the healthcare system, we fix agriculture for every county. You look at Rwanda, for example. In fact, the governance in Rwanda has been so much structured that even certain regions, they are encouraged and assigned only to produce. If it is beans, it is beans. It is well supported by government. If certain regions are supported to produce maize, it is maize. If it is agriculture, it's agriculture. We are not organized. I think we have been confused. We were caught with a very good constitution, and then now we've had competing interests between the national and county government. Look at even the healthcare. There was a time, there was a competition between the county government and national government about certain equipment that were procured without consultations of the county government by the national government. And you see, naturally, this is a function, core function of the county government. I would say, in short, fundamentally and factually, looking at specific data and indicators of how county government should function, we've performed dismally. We had the opportunity. In fact, by now, we should be talking about if really the county governments were consuming close to 1 trillion by now, then county government should have taken over by now. Even the schools infrastructure, school transport system. What are our objectives? What is the distance that we needed to walk in all these areas? So to me, let us not paint a wonderful picture. Let us analyze critically, and you will see that the national government has not allowed appropriation of adequate funding to the county government to function. And it was possible to do so. And that is what should be done by the next government to fully support devolution.
All right. Boss,
what is your review? Like if you are making a scorecard assessment, the first thing you should ask yourself is what are the performance indicators for that particular activity and mandate. So let's just look at the issue of health, because devolution primarily, they have health and agriculture that is devolved. If we look at health, we have consistently heard about strikes by health workers. Why are the health workers striking? It's because there's delayed payments of their salary. And why is the county government delaying paying their salaries? It's because the money is not being disbursed on time from the central government. So that should not be happening. We cannot say that you've had success in the healthcare system when we were having strikes. There was also the challenge where we had problems of also strikes in by the healthcare workers. It had to do with promotions because there isn't a set system in the way they can be promoted. So those who are causing also uncertainties. If we fixed that, then we can begin to say we'll have success. So the performance indicator is not building brick and mortar. Because I think in the State of the Nation address, the president said we have built 6,000. We are now at 6,000 healthcare centers constructed, up from 4,000. That is, construction is not a performance indicator in health. The performance indicator is, do people go to a hospital and get services? That means they're able to have the medical checkup and the medical treatment that they require on time and of good quality. That is a performance indicator. Hence the reason why I would score them poorly on that. If you look at the issue of agriculture, again, they talked about, in fact, the central government kept on talking about the big four, that there would be food security because we have devolved agriculture and we have supported our counties adequately. Had that actually been done, we would not be having a situation where there is food aid in northern Kenya, in Turkana, parts of Kilifi, and so on. It's ongoing now. So, again, for me, the performance indicator is not just that people produce food. It's that nobody starves, that people actually eat the food. and the food is available to people. That's the performance indicator.
Yeah.
So as long as you're still reporting in the newspaper that there is almost 2.5 million households that are actually starvation,
yeah,
then you can't score yourself highly on that. Another issue is if you're making the assessing the scorecard, their score on devolution, again you see how well have they supported devolution. I don't think I've ever had a governors forum where they were praising the government for sending money on time, for being very supportive and so on. They haven't.
Yeah.
That means they have not supported devolution. In fact, the Jubilee government is on record as having actually destroyed devolution illegally by the establishment of the Nairobi Metropolitan Services. If you remember, I wrote an article in the Nation newspaper, and I said, actually, the transfer of service was an illegality. And the courts, that was long before the courts actually declared it an illegality. So how then can you score them well on devolution when they dismantled devolution? So let's not paint a rosy picture and pretend that Jubilee has performed. Let's ask ourselves, what's the performance indicator? And let's see if that indeed actually did happen.
Yeah.
We look also, when you look at generally, in order to support devolution, you basically have to follow the rule of law. The same Jubilee government has been found, in fact, the president himself at his doorstep, 8 times has been pronounced to have committed illegalities and contravened the Constitution. Starting there, I cannot score you well. What I can say is that I scored Jubilee well between 2013 and 2017. They set out clearly in their manifesto that in order to make Kenya a manufacturing nation, then we build the TVETs,
yeah,
the technical institutes, and they did build them. They also said in order for us to be able to boost agriculture, we'll make sure the rural roads are up and running, that electricity has better connectivity. So those they did. And it was supposed to be the foundation, yeah, on which the Big Four was going to be built, which was going to be the next level. But they ran into headwinds in March 2018 when they had the handshake. And after that, the president thought of nothing else than BBI. And I've seen he has not recovered even after the court decision that it's an illegality. He still says it must happen. He said it on Mashujaa Day. He said it in the State of the Nation address in Parliament. He repeated it again in Jamhuri Day. I was horrified. I said, which country does this president live? Can't he get it that he's been told that project of his is dead and buried and can never be resurrected? So when you have a president that is still dreaming and saying it's a dream deferred, no wonder he abandoned the Big Four and did nothing. So for that reason, I will score him probably 2% on that particular point. If you look at the issue of healthcare,
yeah,
on the issue of healthcare, they started well in 2013. And they said they were going to set a platform for the universal healthcare by making certain changes under NHIF. They did try to amend the NHIF Act, yeah, so that contributions would be based on your percentage earnings, which was going to create a bigger fund for NHIF, which means there would be more people covered, including those who are in the informal sector. Unfortunately, Atwoli, who is now part of Jubilee, took the government to court and then ended up scuttling that process.
Yeah.
And because the president went to bed with Atwoli, he has found it difficult to take on Atwoli on this issue of NHIF, which had ended up killing his universal health care plan. So yes, how would you score such a person very well? If you look at the leasing equipment,
yeah,
that was just to benefit cartels. The medical leased equipment, because I know places, including in my own sub-county, yeah, where the equipment is sitting there, but I had a medical camp in the hospital, but we did not have the technician to man the equipment and to be able to write the report for the doctors. It was horrifying, but there was state-of-the-art equipment. Mm. So again, you can see it was the equipment distribution, yeah, was being driven by people who wanted to make money, a few tenderpreneurs at the top.
Yeah.
But they really didn't care about people getting those services at the bottom.
Okay.
That is why when we say we are going to have the bottom-up economic model, is to tell ourselves, this equipment we're buying, how is it going to benefit the millions who are at the bottom?
Okay.
Will they be able to have that dialysis treatment? Will they be able to have that CT scan?
Yeah.
And then we'll say for them to have the CT scan successfully is they have to have a radiologist to be able, and a technician to be able to repair those machines.
Right.
If that doesn't exist, then it was all for nothing.
Okay.
It's just optics and a big show and big words that really deliver no services at the bottom.
Umatangi, do you find it strange that those who are in government are now admitting that they all failed? Because we can't talk about the president alone and exempt.
No, correction. I said it succeeded in 2013 to 2017. In 2018, hold on. I said
so you're saying
they started well. Jubilee did deliver on its manifesto largely between 2013 up to March 2018. After the handshake, we all know publicly. So that is where we had the divorce with Jubilee, the rest of us, because it no longer reflected what we had told the people we are going to deliver. So you don't expect me to remain in a political party that no longer carries the aspiration of the majority of Kenyans or the aspirations of the people who elected me.
Okay. Well, Matangi, do you agree with that? Because it sounds to me like an...
So we left government in March 2018.
What is the question you asked me? Because
you're supposed to give your scorecard. At least you have still declared you're still there.
Yes.
But they were once part of you.
Yeah, that is... why are you saying once?
They still are? They've declared they're in the UDA?
No, of course that's illegal, and you know that. And you can, I can ask my AG to interpret that to all of them, including his teacher.
I am a de facto member of UDA, but a de jure member of Jubilee.
Because you have had your chance to explain everything. Yeah. That's what I was saying, Trevor, that on the question of whether they are still members of Jubilee or not, I think I'll give that responsibility to my AG to explain later. Yeah. But they're still members of Jubilee anyway. But, you know, Trevor, I wanted to revert a little bit backwards and remind you and remind our viewers that sometimes towards the end of Kebake's tenure, when people are trying to analyze his performance, there was a statement that was made repeatedly that Kebake managed development very well, but he did not manage politics.
Yeah.
And that became an issue. As how did that affect his legacy, until his legacy then has been revived later in the middle years of Jubilee's tenure, to now give people a more clear look at what Kebake did. I would probably be asking myself, would Jubilee be guilty of having managed development well and not managed politics? Because if you listen keenly to most of the arguments, you'll find that finally they will be about issues about development, but they were drawn later to politics. And probably that's where the divide would be. Let me approach it this way on the four issues that you raised. But I would have been more comfortable if you had involved, or rather included, 5 of them, because that would give a better view of how the performance is. You gave us the indicators along devolution, education, health, the economy, and infrastructure. Then that would give you a good view. Yeah. And first, remember, I'm a senator, and the role of a senator is captured well within Article 96. So on the first question of devolution, you know what my position is, and I've been one of the advocates. I'm the pioneer of the battle of one man, one vote, one shilling. Yeah. I have put up legislation. I'm the author of the law on assumption of office by governors. And so on the question of devolution and how devolution should serve Kenyans at this point in time, my position is clear, that we should and could have been able to do a lot much more as of now. Yeah. But there's an argument that is dividing between the two perceptions, Trevor. One, are we talking about the state of devolution or what Jubilee government has done about devolution, because the state of devolution, if that becomes the topic, is a different matter altogether. We can talk about why in county governments you have got equipment that is not in use. You could talk about so many other things, why devolved functions are not. That you'd be talking about the state of devolution. And that becomes the twin responsibility, the dual responsibility of those elected at the county government level, governors themselves and their teams, and national government, to ensure then that citizens enjoy the fruits of devolution as they should to the fullest. If you are to apportion blame in this case, for example, why do you have the state of response that you see at county government levels? Why did people drown in Mwingi the other day? And the state of response is appalling. Why do we still have a person today buried in a mine in Bondo, and rescue efforts have halted to nil? I mean, those are questions that you'll be asking about the state of devolution and what we've done with it. But that becomes, like I've said, a twin responsibility. If you look at the areas of performance where you would question national government specifically as to what it has done about devolution, then you would get to the finer points. For example, has government been faithful to ensuring that funds have continued to move or to be disbursed to county governments, at least at incremental levels? And as a senator, I will tell you the answer is yes. Because the first year when we went into the Senate, the amounts that were devolved to county governments were slightly below 200 billion. Now we are talking about 300 billion plus. So you'd see that it has been incremental. But is that enough? And that is why I said, if you're talking about the state of devolution, then defer to the other argument, then it isn't enough. But holistically, as far as the approach, the effort that government has put to devolution, I would ascribe to what my AG was saying, because you cannot ignore the fact that, yes, in 2010 we promulgated the Constitution, but we started to experiment and implement it in 2013 from point zero, from ground zero. And I remember, like, during those first days, when I was in Senate, the first governors who went into office received the first amounts of money in their own accounts. Some of them, 65 million. It was given to the first governors, some of them in their own accounts, others in pseudo accounts that they would manage and go and withdraw the money in cash themselves, to even go and perform their own ceremonies. The first installation ceremonies in county governments were held by governors who were walking to banks, withdrawing money, going to buy cars from a showroom, and with zero framework. And that is how it was across the board for all services. Let us also be clear, Trevor, that as far as devolution of functions is concerned, all functions are devolved. None is not. And that's one of the responsibilities that we took as Senate within our first term. The most visible ones then are the ones that you have highlighted or spoken about earlier, and that is, for example, health. Health is one of the most visible one because it affects us in big ways. So if I would give my thoughts on how has national government performed as far as health is concerned, you would probably start from where we are right now and ask, what kind of response did government show or lead during the COVID era? And I think, Trevor, it would be fair to say that the response of national government towards the COVID pandemic has been fair. It has been spread across board. We cannot argue that we are a country that responded to that kind of malady in a way that we would say we are ashamed of. I heard boss and SG there speak about the equipment that lies around most of the county governments. Actually, that has been one of the main issues that Senate dealt with. And the thought and idea itself wasn't bad. It was good because you can go to Ajia, you can go to Mandera, you go to a health care facility, you find that they have got X-rays, they've got MRIs, they've got equipment that can be able to give services to the people there. The question has been, Once that equipment was taken there, then what ensued? What happened? Why wasn't it put into use? And although it is agreeable that the framework of procurement was not as it should have been, the functions and services of that equipment are still needed in that county. And so we can't say that it was a bad thing to have the equipment there because the framework was bad, you know, as far as the question of health is concerned. But like I've said, because I don't want to be long-winding on most of these issues, there's a lot much more that would have been done. Let me get to the question of the economy. And I think, Trevor, on the economy, we would still look at where have we come from and where are we right now. And the global scenario speaks for what and where Kenya is right now. We have had to deal with a depression that was global, then came to the question of COVID-19. Those are global seismic moves that affect every country. And I believe that as a country, not as Jubilee, but as a country, we have done the best. The only difference is that we happen to have Jubilee in leadership. Finally, is on the question of education. I don't know whether, Trevor, when you look at what has happened in education, you would say that we have been static. I do not think we have been. And you know, Mheshimiwa Sosion has been a starlighter in that area of education. You see, how about the 100% transition? How about the CBC-based curriculum? How about the TVTs? How about the funds that are now being rolled out to those institutions for infrastructure to ensure that then the CBC and the 100% transition becomes a reality, because institutions are now receiving those funds? Would you say that we are static, that we have not made positive moves? And as my AG asked Trevor, when you drive now from here to Homa Bay or to Kisumu, and when you drive to Mombasa, if you want to go to Moyale this morning and drive by road, would you say, as you leave this place and go to your house in Ngong or any other place, that you are experiencing the same thing that you experienced in 2013, that there has not been change? If you went to Mombasa and saw the expansion of the baths there, you know, if you go to the airport today and look at your airport, the way it was in 2013, would you say that you are still the same people that you are? So I think one thing that we have to agree is that the management of our politics has got to be differentiated from where we are as a people. And remember, this is a relay. Even if after Jubilee, because Jubilee will leave office in 2022 in August, that baton will be handed over to whoever will have been elected by Kenyans. But what he will inherit is the whole of what has been done, and they have to run with it and build on the same gains, you know, such that I don't think it will serve us well if we become the devil's advocate in every case about who we are and where we are as a country. We should differentiate the politics and look at where we have made gains. Make sure that we fundamentally ensure that those gains are protected so that they can be built upon. So
what's your score?
So my score on Jubilee, I would score it a good 6%, and knowing that if we did
6%, that's a bad score.
If we did
60%,
now,
60.
So we said 1 to 10. I would give it at 6. That would be 60. And that's why I insisted when I spoke earlier here, Trevor, that even these remaining last days, if people were consistent and focused and determined, we can cover another 10% to deliver on a 70% or 80% when Jubilee is leaving office. And for us who are younger and intend to be left in leadership, we should close that gap to 100% in the next 5 years. And that's when we bequeath this leadership to our young people. We'll be saying we've done our part.
We have just about 10 minutes left here. So you want to jump in, but
it's getting heated, particularly when you touch education, touch other areas, and even the rule of law. All these areas, whether it's health, whether it's devolution, whether it's education, whether it's economy, is guided by the law. The question is, have we operated within the presence of the law in order to implement this? Even what you desire, do it within the law. Don't circumvent the law. And when you see the president and state officers even violating the law, disobeying court directions, then it really tells us that we are doing these things within the presence of anarchy.
Yeah.
And the biggest problem of Jubilee is operating outside the law. And that's a fact. It has been demonstrated. And now, when it comes to education, education, of course, we must look at very many indicators. What was promised? Number one was laptop. Do we have laptops with learners in our schools? It was every child will walk to school with a laptop. But look at it, 1,000 units, not laptops, but tablets. 1 million units have only been supplied. They are not functioning in schools. The teachers were not trained. They can't use.
No electricity.
They are dead. And how much has been used? 17 billion shillings. What else could have 17 billion shillings done? Trevor, in all these areas we are talking about, it has been taken over and hijacked by cartels. And these cartels are within government, they are protected by the executive. What was the idea of these laptops? Who came up with it? How was it conceived? If you want to get to a sector, you originate that policy from the sector players. And I can tell you, my brother senator, this idea of laptops was a strange thing to us, and we would have preferred that it's done differently. It became a miserable loss. It's a zero score for Jubilee. The CBC, why are you praising CBC? And we are constituents. Parents are complaining about it. Teachers are complaining about it. Teachers even don't know. Nobody can interpret a true CBC in Kenya. And there is no CBC in the classrooms. What teachers are teaching are outcome-based curriculum. Nobody understands this curriculum. And a good curriculum is one that inspires, that teachers understand, that parents love, and that which everybody loves in this country. And it's about the rule of law. How was it introduced? And what are the objectives? What are the hidden interests? As a player in the sector, it is more foreign control. It's about business. And it's going to kill the public schools. It's going to promote private education and privatization with time. I saw the other day, now the private primary schools are beginning to build facilities to accommodate the lower secondary. It's more business interest. And you see, when you look at empirical data and the issues from the sector, people are complaining. There is no connection even within this curriculum being rolled out with the universities. Universities are in the sea, in the dark about what is happening. And the curriculum in any country begins at the university, through research, through studies, through conversations. And then let's look at funding of education. The ideas from Kibaki were so brilliant, but they've been mismanaged within Jubilee. It has not been properly escalated, directed to the right areas. Look at the universities. I saw yesterday a cartoon where a ship of Jomo Kenyatta University is sinking, Moi University is sinking, universities are collapsing because of poor funding. And why poor funding? The policies that were introduced. So really, a job is cut out for the new president to reorganize the education sector. And for me, I'll give a score. I'll give a score for Jubilee on education. I'll give it 2 out of 10. Yeah, that's a fact. Then number 2 on the economy. We must talk about the economy because it affects everyone. Economy, you look at it in terms of poverty index. The level of poverty in the country, the prevailing, Kenyans cannot put food on the table. What is the cost of a kilo of sugar currently? It's close to 150 to 200. Kenyans cannot afford. Is that really a good economy? And then number 2, let's look at the borrowing. When Moi retired, he retired after borrowing 650 billion. That was what was in the balance sheet, 650 billion. For 24 years. When Kibaki retired, he retired with a debt of 1.2 trillion. But a lot of things have been done, roads, education, and several other areas. Right now with Jubilee, we are talking about 9 trillion in less than 10 years. And what has the 9 trillion done? It has been stolen. That's the truth. So really, we must state facts. And the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, will go into records as having left a bad legacy, after getting a very good opportunity, something well done by Kibaki and Moi over the years, but it has been mismanaged. But basically, because he doesn't respect the rule of law, he doesn't respect institutions. Even look at the education sector. Unions have been destroyed. And Uhuru Kenyatta is still very busy fighting with the judiciary. A judgment was rendered on BBI. I supported BBI for good reason. But a judgment has been rendered by a competent court in this country. In fact, twice. And the president can still go ahead to really bash the judiciary. Yeah. So really, in terms of even the economy, I'll give it 1%. When Kenyans are reeling in poverty, even those crowds that you see, those are Kenyans who are better. They are agitated with the poor state of the economy. Okay. So I'll give it 1%.
So your overall score would...
my overall score, I think Jubilee goes home with 3%.
Okay. let me bring it. It's very interesting for Kenyans. Kibaki did very well. He did very well because there were institutions called parliament. Right now here, the message from the two members of parliament is that President Uhuru Kenyatta has refused to fund devolution. Kenyans read your law very well. Who allocates budgets? That is the role of parliament. Any failure for money arriving in your village is a question of failure of your member of parliament. He or she is the one who allocates resources. The budget is parliament. They have failed to do their job. They are now telling the president, go and get money, carry the money from Equity Bank and send it to Nyamira County. That can't happen. Number two, Trevor. The question about oversight of presidential and executive power rests with parliament. Today, the two members of parliament are running away and they are saying they have no role at all. The question about borrowing from Kenya and outside the country, I've listened very attentively. The limit on how much Kenya borrows is a parliamentary question. The ceiling that allows the executive to borrow. When it was under Kibaki, the ceiling was low. These same people have raised the ceiling to heaven. They have allowed the executive to borrow. But now they are telling you, oh boss, it is the president borrowing. So, and I've said this very clearly, politicians are political animals. They will put their words the way they want at situation, at context. 2013 to 2017, Jubilee was the apex. Mheshimiwa, my boss, was in Jubilee that time. Jubilee did fantastically well. Jubilee did poorly. He was with Raila Odinga at that time. So this question of words that fit situations is where we have a problem. The law is settled. The role of parliament must do. Or else what these members of parliament are telling the citizens is that we have failed. Don't elect us back. But if they are saying that they have not done what they are supposed to do, that then will cost their seats in the next election. Finally, Trevor, let me put it to perspective. The question of index in the health sector is treatment. We are looking at how many people are being treated. We should look as program managers, the infrastructure, to lay the infrastructure, the foundation, the buildings, sourcing of procurement of doctors, sourcing of materials. The end result is treatment. When we are talking about laptops, we must also put into perspective that the laptops will be an end product. There must be laying of the infrastructure, which is time consuming. So we are looking at, what did you say? Every building, every Kenyan knows very well when you build like a small Kasimba for your son or for yourself, that there must be sunk costs, there must be time for the building to cure, for that building to develop. You put the windows, you paint, then you sit in to eat your githeri. After 2 years, Jubilee, because now I don't belong to any of those political parties, and I want to tell them very freely that I'm looking at very well. When I look as an advocate the judiciary is determined by the judgment. That is a 3-hour judgment or a 2 minutes judgment. So much work has been done towards that judgment. We can't assess this country based on the end result without factoring in the processes that lead to that. Every government must lay the foundation stone. And that's what I said. Jubilee, with its own mistakes, has laid the foundation stone for whoever comes to deliver. If we are saying that in the education sector, Mwalimu, I was a teacher also from 1990 when I was a graduate teacher admitted after a bachelor's degree in education. I taught for 18 years. I am well versed with issues education and law. Are we taking this country to the education that will produce the next 2 generations? Or are we sticking to the education that will serve us today but will not serve 10 generations to come? So the CBD, the new type of education, is futuristic. Mheshimiwa, let him be very clear that when that thing was passed in Parliament, Mheshimiwa was seated in Parliament. He has the power even today. He moves from here, moves a motion. Parliament has never debated. What I'm saying, has he brought the motion in Parliament?
Perspective.
If Parliament has never debated,
even the Senate.
What I'm saying, whose failure is it? Whose failure is it?
The executive.
They have failed as members of Parliament to oversight the executive. And that is why I'm saying, Mheshimiwa, be very careful. You might lose your seat if you say Parliament has never discussed. Then in Parliament, we have almost 4 or 5 members of Parliament who are former trade unionists. So really what I'm trying to focus, let us not be blaming others when that role and that mandate is squarely with us. And that is why Wamatangi is trying to say
I'll come to you
that he's going to appoint me an AG because you cannot run away from your mandate and your responsibility and apportion the blame to somebody who directly or indirectly has no role.
I think I need to respond. No, he spoke on behalf of your party. I think we need to respond on that point because he's going on and on about what happened in Parliament. Yes, Parliament, does allocate and appropriate the budget. But who disburses the budget? It's the executive through the National Treasury. So when there is money delayed that is supposed to go to the counties, it's not that Parliament has failed. The delay, because there is no time. Parliament has never had the budget read on time. It is a specific date and a specific time of the year. So we know that obviously. And then also remember, when you're in government, the reason why when you're campaigning as a presidential candidate, you want to get as many parliamentarians and senators as possible. Reason being that they can drive your agenda for you. In the case of Jubilee, what happened, I was in House leadership. And I was the best performing chairperson in Parliament. And during that time, I delivered on my mandate. But what happened? Because of the handshake, we were removed from House leadership.
So, Mari, your microphone's out.
We were removed from House leadership positions. Yet, the reason why Jubilee make sure they get the budget chair, they make sure they have the finance chair, you make sure that you have certain key House leaderships that are from people from the government, the government party, or the ruling party, so that they are able to help government drive its agenda. Today, after the handshake, Who is the chair of the Finance Committee? Gladys Wanga, who never voted for Uhuru Kenyatta and has always been against him. So how do you expect us to take blame when we have been removed from House leadership? So I take no blame for after we were removed from Jubilee House leadership.
Right.
Today, the leader of majority, who was loyal to Jubilee and who was loyal to the president and who understood the president's manifesto, Aden Duale, was removed. So no wonder it's directionless. So that's why I'm saying it is very clear. This current Jubilee after March 2018, you have Raila Odinga as the de facto president, vice president, deputy president of Kenya.
Okay.
Yeah, and or Matiang'i is the de facto one. The de jure deputy president is William Ruto, who has been sidelined.
Okay.
Then let's go to the point of saying, on the issue of all these projects that we undertook, the performance indicator of whether building roads, whether setting up electricity, was supposed to spur economic growth. So you can build a beautiful expressway. We agree, we can see it. We live in the traffic because of it. But has it spurred economic growth? No. Hence the reason why we said, had we been given an opportunity, we would have said, you're going to build an expressway that you're spending 80 billion shillings, but is only hiring 3,000 people.
Okay.
But if we had used the same 80 billion on low-tar roads across the country, we would have created 400,000 jobs.
Okay.
That is what we said. That is where we departed with Jubilee. Let's look at the gun factory.
Yeah.
The gun factory, we spent maybe 30 billion or whatever billions,
4 billion.
and we only to hire 100 people. We said, had that money been put elsewhere, we would have created 300,000 jobs. That is what we are saying, that we have found that whatever economic activities were undertaken did not touch on the millions of Kenyans at the bottom. And lastly, let me talk about on the back page of the Nation. State launches housing project for KDF. They are building houses in Nyali, houses in Laikipia, houses for the military. And they also want to upgrade the military hospitals. How is that going to touch on the ordinary mwananchi? Remember, the military are people who already have jobs and they are sheltered. Why is it we are not thinking about housing for those people in Kibera who are living in shacks and don't even have toilets? So our priorities are misplaced because we have a president who's obsessed with the military. Hence the reason why he is wearing military regalia more often than any other president in the history of Kenya has done. That is why he hands over he hands over the Kenya Meat Commission, he hands it over to the military. The county government of Nairobi hands it over to the military. So this militarization of our country is what has caused us to have misplaced priorities.
Wamatangi, close this for us because we ran out of time.
Yes, and I'll be very short. I'll be very brief on it.
And lastly, he needs to remember I'm not just a politician, I'm also an officer of the court first.
I'll be very brief on this, Trevor. And the reason why I said I'll give my AG a job, and I want to guarantee you that if I had the certificates, I would sign it for you now. On a serious note. You know, because Trevor, that's one of the problems I've been having personally. I am a member of parliament as a senator, and I take full responsibility that on the failures of parliament, I should have done better. Yes, and that is the point. And this is the problem we have with our members of parliament, that you find that when we should have acted, when we should have represented Kenyans and did what we should do, we want to run to the umbrella of political shading so that we can look blameless. Yet there are things we should have done. And that's why I said, and I like what Mheshimiwa Sosion said, as a member of parliament himself, that we need to be bound by the law. And this is what we should begin by doing, explaining to Kenyans first. When you elect a government, that government is in place for 5 years. So with those members, for those 5 years, there is no room whereby midway you could start running to the sides and shouting at the same government and saying things that don't deliver on the mandate. The first responsibility, tell Kenyans within the law that these 5 years we first have to serve you. We may disagree. We may not see things the same way, but we have core issues that we must deliver on. Then at the end of that term, we will part ways. And we will go to a new dispensation, and we will have new promises and deliver on those new promises. That should be the way. You see, Trevor, on the questions of should members of parliament have done more to ensure that the successes If you hear Mheshimiwa Sosion that says that I give 3% or 30%, or boss saying I give 5% or 4%,
2%.
Should it have been the responsibility of myself, of boss, of Sosion, to make sure that that is a good 80%, and that 80% belongs to the people of Kenya?
Yeah.
Kenyans would have been living better if we did those things that we are doing. But how do you elect people to come here and sit here and start wailing when Kenyans are wailing? That Kenyans are crying, we are dying, and you say, yes, we are dying. And you have been given the mandate yourself to go and rescue those people. And that's why I said in the first place, Trevor, that I want to be distinguished personally, even if I take the blame, that I would leave a legacy and a reputation of somebody who stays the course in good and bad times. That you would say, yes, it was rainy, it was hilly, this is what happened. But I stayed the course and tried to do the best until the last day. Okay. And that is why, as leaders, I want to challenge my colleagues that what we need to do is put our minds together. We have political differences, but those are outside the interest of the people of Kenya. The reason why an old man in my village cannot put a meal on the table has nothing to do with how I belong in politics. But it has everything to do with what can I put my mind together with boss and Sosion and the others and say that this is a good law, that this is what we should do. And unless we start thinking that way, this country is going to be beholden, we are going to be trapped, we are going to be desolate because political leaders do not carry political responsibility and they don't execute and carry the mandate they should. We should do our job and not sing and not come here to complain, but to take action.
I like
that
the
is
end
positive.
of it. Do your job.
Thank you.
I like the end of it. Dr. Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator, Gladys Boss, Wasingishu Women Representative Wilson Sosion, nominated Member of Parliament, Danstan Omari, Advocate of the High Court. Thank you so much.